Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This video is a continuation of a previous video in which we were building a family history application. The focus of this video is on working with multiple resources and how you may want to handle interactions with the FHIR server when performing actions on those resources, such as creating them, deleting them, or updating them. Keep in mind that with a patient's family history, we're dealing with multiple family members, and each family member is a separate instance of the family member history FHIR resource. So in this video, we'll talk about how to handle that in your application. But before we begin, I want to give a quick recap of the application that we've built so far. First of all, we're using the Smart Health IT Sandbox to perform our testing, simply because it's easy and convenient to work with. And this is the template that we get when we use the Create Plasma App tool. We'll be using this sample patient here. Inside the application, we have a table that shows the family history. The table is currently empty because this patient doesn't have any family history at the moment. So we have a button here called Create Test Family, which will create 3 test family members for us to work with. We also have the Update Family Member button, which only changes the name of the first family member simply as a demonstration of how to perform an update action. And when the table is populated, each row in the table has a delete button that will delete that family member when clicked. When we click Create Test Family, we are going to run this function here called Create Test Family. And what we do is we construct a family member, in this case it's the father, and then we call plasma.createResource of type family member history, which makes a call to the FHIR server to create that resource. We do it again for the mother and once again for the sister. So in this case, it is making 3 separate calls to the FHIR server. We can simplify this a bit using a new function in the Plasma API called Create Resources, and I'll show you how to use that right now. So we would do plasma.createResources, and we say the resource name is family member history. And then we pass an array of the resources that we want to create. They all need to be of the same type. In this case, it's the array father, mother, and sister. And that's how you could do that. But I actually wouldn't recommend using this. I'd recommend using something called a bundle, which is what this is using behind the scenes, but I'll show you a more explicit way to do that. But before I show you how to do that, I want to explain why you might want to do that in your application. And the reason is I think it will result in a better user experience. So I'll demonstrate now. We're going to click Create Test Family to create those 3 test family members. So I'll click that now. We can see in the console that the callback has completed for each of these family members. We see family member created, created, created. And if I refresh the screen, we've reloaded the family history from the server, but it's still empty. And in fact, it will take a number of seconds until those families start appearing when we try to load them from the server. So I'm going to sit here and refresh the screen until those family members start loading in. Okay, the family members have finally shown up, and as you can see, that's not a good experience for the user. We really don't want the user to sit there and wait until those family members are registered on the FHIR server before they can see them in the UI. And it would also be hard to develop on because we would have to just refresh until we see something loaded that we know should be loaded. So that itself is a bad user experience. Let's try some of the other buttons here and see how they work. So now I'm going to click Update Family Member, which should change this family member's name to a bunch of numbers. And we can see that actually happened pretty quickly. So that is a good user experience. And to recap what's happening with the update, when we call update relative, we're calling plasma.updateResource, which is making a call to the FHIR server to update the given relative. So it looks like updating on this server is a little bit faster than creating. But there's really no guarantee that any of these actions are going to occur within a certain amount of time. So we need to develop around that. I've noticed a similar kind of weird issue with deletions. So when I delete this family member, what we see is that all the data gets cleared out. So it has actually reloaded the data when I clicked delete, but it's still loading in 3 family members. However, the first family member they have an ID but no actual data. If we compare that to the family member with index 1, we see that the data is actually filled out. And this family member will disappear eventually, but again, it's going to take around 60 seconds in my testing until that family member disappears. And this, once again, is not a good experience for the user. So what I'd recommend doing instead is making a record of all the actions that you perform during the application and executing them all at once when the user is finished using the application. And the way that we can do that is using a resource called a bundle. So here's the documentation for a FHIR bundle. And a bundle is essentially a collection of actions and resources. It's a collection of resources and which action you'd like to perform on those resources. The type of the bundle is important, we can see right here, and I'd like to talk about that right now. The 2 types I'd like to talk about, here's the list of types you can choose from, but the 2 that I think are relevant for this video are batch and transaction. So batch is simply a set of actions that will be performed independently of each other. And a transaction is also a set of actions, but it ensures that they all succeed or they all fail. So you can choose which kind you'd like. If you don't care if some of them fail, then you can use the batch and it will perform as many as it's able to. And if some fail, then they fail. Or the transaction will try to perform all the actions, and if even a single one fails, then everything will fail. Now I'll show you how to implement a batch using the Plasma framework. So we're going to rewrite our create test family using a batch. So the first thing I will do is comment out these individual creations here. And what we'll do is create a new bundle. We'll say let bundle equal, and we'll call plasma.startBundle. This is going to give us an empty bundle, and by default it uses the batch type, but you can pass in the type that you'd like, so we can pass in transaction if we want. I'm going to actually stick with batch, which is the default. I can also type in batch. Oops. And then what we want to do is add our actions one by one to that batch, and then we will submit the batch. So what we do in this case is we say bundle equals, so we're going to update our bundle. We're going to call plasma.add_to_bundle. And it first takes the existing bundle, so it can add to it. It takes an action that you want to perform, which must be either create, update, or delete, so we'll call create. And then the resource that we want to perform that action on. So in this case, we'll start with the father. We want to create a father. And by the way, that row has finally deleted. Okay, we want to do the same thing here for the mother and for the sister. And now we have a bundle with 3 creations in it, so we'd like to post that to the FHIR server. So what we can do is call await plasma.createResource, and it's of type bundle, and we will pass in the bundle, and we can just log something when that's finished, such as family members were created, and we'll log the bundle. I'm going to save this, clear my console, and refresh. And we'll see now that when I click Create Test Family, it's going to try to create 3 new family members. We currently have 2 on the screen, so when this bundle is completed, we should have 5. So I will click Create Test Family. We can see that our callback was completed. And once again, it's going to take a few minutes until that bundle appears when we load from the server. So once again, I'll sit here and refresh. It'll take about 60 seconds until those appear on this server. Okay, the bundle has finally posted and the family members are now loading in. And this is a demonstration of how to use bundles with the Plasma framework. Now, as I mentioned before, I think it's a better user experience to perform all the actions at the end so that the user doesn't end up waiting for things to sync with the FHIR server. With our current model, whatever's on the UI is exactly what's being reflected from the FHIR server, so in some cases that may be desirable. But it results in a lot of weird user experiences that are probably going to be seen negatively. So what I really recommend to do is to perform all the actions locally in your application and then keep a record of every action that you've performed and submit those when the user has completed the application. So I'll demonstrate how you may want to do that, but essentially every action is going to involve two things. Number one, update the app appropriately, and number two, make a record of that action so that you can perform it in bulk at the end using a bundle. So to use delete, for example, when the user clicks delete, we want to remove that row from the table locally, which we can do instantly, and then we want to make a record that we have deleted a relative, and when the user is finished with the application, we'll submit that deletion along with whatever other changes the user has made throughout the application. So in this case, I'm going to add a save button down here at the bottom, and when the user clicks save, it's going to perform all the actions that we've been recording and then do that all at once. So let me first figure out where the button should be. Okay, so let's add a new line here, and we'll add a button called save. And when that's clicked, we'll call on save click. And I like this button to be green. Okay, now we need to implement the on save click callback. So let's scroll up here and let's put it right here. Const on save click equals use callback. We can make this async if we want. Okay, so what we need to do when save is clicked is we need to call that create resource of type bundle function. So to do that, we need to have a bundle. So let's come up to our state and let's add a new state. We'll call it bundle and set bundle. That's going to be of type bundle, or undefined is okay. We'll initialize it to undefined. So now we have a bundle that we can work with. Let's initialize our bundle when the app is loaded. We can do that with a use effect. So we will say set bundle, and we'll call plasma.startBundle. That's going to create us a blank bundle. And let's actually just double check that plasma is defined. So if not plasma, we will just return and we just won't be able to do it. And now we have initialized our bundle when the app is loaded. And now what we need to do is anytime an action is performed, like in this case, in this example, when a delete is performed, we're going to add the delete action to that bundle. So let's come down to our delete callback, and instead of calling plasma.deleteResource, let's actually add a delete to our bundle. So let's just say if bundle is defined, because it can be undefined, that's how we defined it. And what we want to do is call set bundle. So we want to update our bundle with the result of plasma.add2bundle. We want to give it our existing bundle, the action that we want to do, which is a delete in this case, and the resource that we want to delete, which is passed in here as relative. So now all we've done is we've updated our bundle to add a delete action. And what you should also do, which I'm not going to do in this example, is you should update your UI to delete that row so that the user gets instantaneous feedback that that relative was deleted. Like I said, I'm not going to do that in this example because this is focusing on working with bundles. And I'm using React Query here, so that expects a promise to be returned here. So I'm just going to return promise.resolve. Okay. So now when we click delete relative, it will add a delete action for that relative to our bundle. Now we can implement our save function. You see where I put that? On save click. Now what we want to do is create that bundle. So it's going to be dependent on the bundle. We're going to say, well, if not plasma, and we'll just return, in this case, you probably want to show an error message. Plasma should be defined, but TypeScript will give us warnings if we don't do it. We also want to check if bundle is defined, so If there's no bundle, then we'll just return. And now we can call plasma.createResource of type bundle, and we'll pass in that bundle. And then we can say data was saved, and we can even print out the bundle. All right, I'm getting some warnings down here. I think, let me just refresh really quick. I'm going to put that back. Alrighty, so hopefully we coded that correctly, and let's test it out by deleting a few relatives. So we're going to delete, let's say, the two relatives named John. Let's delete those and then click Save, and that should submit our two deletions at that time. However, we are still getting some errors here. Use effect. Okay, I had a bug in my code. It was the use effect. I forgot to put the dependency array here, which is just going to be empty in this case because it's we just want to initialize the bundle at the beginning of the app. And another thing that I forgot to do is when we click Save and we submit our bundle, we then want to clear out the bundle so that we're working with a new empty bundle. And this is because I've implemented it as a save function. You could also do something like when the user closes, then it does the save at that time. But in this case, now we want to reset the bundle. So I'm going to say set bundle to plasma.startBundle. And we will get this warning with TypeScript saying Plasma could be undefined, but we checked it up here. It's just that it doesn't know it because it's in a callback, so I'll just use exclamation point to say I'm certain that Plasma has been defined. All right, so now we are ready to test. We're going to try to delete the two Johns and then click Save, which should submit our bundle. So I'm doing a refresh here. I'm going to click Delete John, and then I'm going to delete this John. And now I'm going to click Save, and I will refresh the app. And now we see that the Johns are gone. And we're also seeing that lingering issue where the resource ID still appears on a load, but none of the data is present. And we could write an app, some logic in our app that filters those type of resources out or something like that. But the point here is that for a better user experience, you want your UI to be responsive, and that means that you really need to do things all locally within the app so you can update the UI instantly and then save up those actions and make calls back to the server at a later time. Don't depend on the server, the FHIR server being instantaneous and able for you to keep it in constant sync and also have a good user experience. So I hope that made sense to you. The bundle API may change. I just did that today and just to test it out. But let me know what you think about it if you have any opinions. And I hope you found this video useful. If you like these types of videos, feel free to subscribe, or if you want to contact me, you can go to my website. It's plasmafhir.com, and that's FHIR, F-H-I-R, plasmafhir.com. Or you can email me at plasmafhir@gmail.com. Thank you very much for watching.